In an area on planet Earth, you are not allowed or any creature to visit it, because there is no government or population, and the one who rules and controls it is a group of countries, and no one can approach it without their consent, and this area is the continent of Antarctica, whose name is derived from two words in the Greek language, which are you mean against or opposite, and I promised we heard it the bear, and this is a reference to a star group famous as the Big Dipper located in the North Pole, meaning the word on each other means anti-Arctic zone. Hello, my family, curious souls. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, your coffee mug, and focus with me. The continent is one of the largest continents in the world with an area of more than 14 million square kilometers, and it has 90% of the ice that exists on the entire planet, which means that it has 70% of the fresh water that is on Earth, and the struggle over the curds begins after the end of World II. Specifically in 1946, when America sold a huge military campaign known as Operation High Jump, or 10 ships and 25 American aircraft participated in it. Their goal was to control the largest region of the continent, and the declared goal was scientific research, and in the same period began military conflicts between Argentina and England over areas of the southern continent, and then Chile enters as a violin, and suddenly turns into a triple conflict between England, Argentina and Chile on the territory of Antarctica, because in 1959 the largest governments in the world met in Washington and made the Antarctic Treaty in order to stop the conflicts over it and divide it among themselves, and each country according to its strength, and signed the agreement of 12 countries, the most important of which were America, the Soviet Union, Britain and Japan, and the treaty was an international document regulating the relations and interests of the region between the countries of the world. One of the most important provisions of the treaty is that the use of Antarctica must be for peaceful purposes and freedom of scientific research, provided that the results of research are exchanged and that you ban military activities there. And in order to protect local fauna and flora, they also made a protocol for the protection of the environment and signed it in Madrid in 1901 and 9. But I wonder if these countries really succeeded in making it a utopia for scientific research, as they say there are many provocative actions by the treaty countries that are trying from under to gain larger territories, like the Argentine government that in 1977 sent a pregnant woman named Silvia Morella to deliver her baby Emilio in Antarctica so that this would be the first human being born on this continent, and thus Argentina strengthens its regional presence there. And the same idea was done by the Chilean Emperor Augusto Pinochet, and yet, a couple to succeed there, and he is satisfied with that. On the territory of the Chilean station, there is a church of their own and built a school to educate the children of soldiers working for the base, while Russia built a church next to their research station there. But on the other side, the scientist sees that all these actions are a malicious attempt to own the largest area of land for undeclared purposes. In 1821, sailor and explorer John Davis was the first human to arrive at the place. This and then be hundreds of expeditions like the expedition arrived there in December 1900, and 11 led by the Norwegian sailor were born from age. And then a British expedition consisting of 5 people led by Robert Scott, and members of the expeditions when they arrived there, there was no charming landscape of seas, mountains and glaciers, thousands of seabirds, amazing species of polar animals, and huge colonies of penguins on the beaches, and unfortunately all the members of the expedition died returning, and then there was no more people live on the continent. But what is the situation now? The people who live in the southern continent can be divided into 2 groups. The first group is the people who work in scientific research stations that number about 66 scientific bases, and they work in about 4,000 people. And the second group are the tourists who live in Bijou to live the atmosphere of real wildlife for a temporary period, and Bimshutani, meaning that we cannot say that there are people who live there permanently. Although the treaty recognizes tourism as a legitimate activity in the southern world, but tourists must have an official permit from the parties to the treaty, and they are allowed to visit certain places that are allowed to visit, and the trip is supervised by an organization called IT, or this organization is joined by more than 100 companies from different countries responsible for traveling to the southern continent. But in order to go there as a tourist, The subject is very complicated and you must come from certain countries present in the treaty, such as Argentina or Chile, and you cannot go live there unless you're a scientist or you will provide scientific support. Is it really Area Dema? The friend didn't live on it and didn't live on it before. First, there are no land bridges to Antarctica for 1 million years, and they are completely isolated due to distance and so difficult climate that only 2% of its area is new. It was very difficult for the primitive peoples to discover it, but with the development of technology over the past years, they are able to explore the isolated continent further, and over time there are stations for scientific research, and after research there is no physical evidence of the existence of indigenous people there and no trace of any trace. Alright, the world was divided between people who believed it and other people who saw myths such as the story of the American pilot and explorer Richard Delhi, who was involved in American operations on the continent in the 20th century, who wrote in his memoirs that he was able to reach there to an underground city whose inhabitants are of other races other than humans, and that the Germans are after. The second scientific loved to escape there and discovered caves and underground openings. They built a huge city and lived in it, and many other stories that do not have any scientific proof to prefer Antarctica as one of the most mysterious places on our planet, because what we know about it is much more than what we know. If you liked the video, don't forget the like and a stimulating comment.